of coercion. And that's what we're fighting. We don't need to rebuild trust in this country. We need to rebuild, to regain our freedom, to rebuild the marketplace of ideas where free speech is possible. And that will lead to better health outcomes. Here's why I'm hopeful. Accountability is finally coming, and the culture is finally turning. Just this week, another name in this story resurfaced. That's Paul Thorsen, the CDC researcher whose early 2000 studies were used for years to tell the whole world that there could not possibly be a link between vaccines and autism. Well, he's expected to plead guilty on September 1st. He was indicted on 22 counts of wire fraud, money laundering, and theft for diverting more than $1 million in grant money meant for autism research into his own pocket. For years, even after his indictment, his work was used to prop up the narrative that all vaccines are safe and effective. Not because there's real science backing that statement, but because we're supposed to trust people who we know, even when we know they committed serious crimes, that they lied to us, that they censored us, that they propagandized us, and that they stole from us. And even now, the censorship hasn't stopped. It's just gotten quieter. This week, the top news apps buried every story about Fauci's own private concerns over miscarriage risk and the COVID shot. Apple and Google News wouldn't surface them, but they had no trouble promoting stories attacking President Trump's executive order on the childhood vaccine schedule. Same playbook as before. Bury what's inconvenient and amplify what increases corporate profits. But it's starting to fail, and that's the point. Callie Means said it perfectly. Anyone hoping to just go back to normal, to the normal of saluting the institutions that told us to shut up and trust the science, that's never coming back. That's never going to happen. There's a sledgehammer coming to the old medical system, and the American people are the ones swinging it. And here's the best part. While the old guard is busy burying stories to boost their profits, this administration is busy building something. Just this week, Secretary Kennedy and Secretary Brooke Rollins rolled out a new plan called Harvest to Hallways. And it goes right to where health actually begins, our kids and the food we put in front of them at school. For years, we've made empty promises about serving healthier food in schools, but we've ignored the obvious problem. As Secretary Rollins put it, a lot of our school cafeterias don't even have ovens anymore. So, of course, they can't cook. They were rebuilt to do nothing but reheat ultra-processed food shipped in from the big food companies that are poisoning our children. So this new plan doesn't just hand down another meaningless directive. It invests in real kitchens, in scratch cooking, in buying fresh food from local farmers, and in the research to prove that it works. As Secretary Kennedy says, every school meal should make a child healthier. Think about that. More fresh produce, more real protein, less added sugar, and less ultra-processed junk food. And American farmers will be connected directly to the schools in their own communities. That's the whole MAHA idea in one program. Health, like culture, starts upstream, before chronic disease, before drugs. And there are few better places to start than the school cafeteria. That's the destination, not a place, but a new way of seeing the world. Real safety built on truth and transparency and your right to choose for yourself. That's what MAHA is fighting for, and that's a fight that we are going to win. On this week's show, we have some incredible guests who are really at the front lines of trying to change the culture, help people in this country do their own research into what will make them healthier, and bring real food into our classrooms and our kitchens and hospitals, and working at every level to make America healthier. Today, we'll be joined by Jack Posobiec, Steve Kirsch, Chef Jeff Zakarian, Dr. Bob Sears, Mary Holland, Dr. Eric Berg, Russell Brand, and Anthony Constantino. But first, we have Steve Bannon. And let me just say that Steve Bannon is a brilliant, relentless, fearless political strategist and the host of Bannon's War Room, And very much like Bobby Kennedy, Steve has been called the most dangerous political operative in America. And, that kind of danger is the kind of danger we can live with. So he's one of the most controversial political thought leaders in the world today. He's a former Navy officer and an investment banker, but above all, he's an unapologetic patriot. Welcome, Steve. Great to have you back on. Looks like we might be having some tech problems. Steve, can you hear us? Next up, we have Jack Posobiec, and Jack is a prominent political commentator, writer, and media personality. And he's authored a whole bunch of books, including the incredible bestseller, Unhumans, The Secret History of Communist Revolutions and How to Crush Them. He joins us today to talk about communism and how it's connected to public health and food. Welcome, Jack. Hey, Jack, it sounds like we can't hear you.
Wait, there we go. Is that any better?
Great.
Okay, great. So thank you so much for, again, for getting me on and, sticking through thick and thin with myself and with the team in terms of everything that we've done to get this information out and to understand the true danger of centralized power under communist and socialist systems. And speaking with people who have been survivors of these systems, victims of these systems, and of course, also the revolutionary violence that is always associated with how they come to power. And the reason we put out the second edition now of Unhumans Socialist Revolution is because, unfortunately, we find ourselves in the middle of a socialist revolution. So the first edition, the original, was sort of a historical look. Now we're talking about what's happening right now in fifth generation warfare. And when we were chatting before, and some folks had asked me, well, what's the connection between, public health and all of these things, MAHA and all this? And I said, don't you guys realize that every single thing that we talk about in this book, whether it's the Chinese Communist Party and their support for the Great Leap Forward, which was done under the auspices of the power of the state taking over every farm in China, or the Bolshevik Revolution, where Lysenkoism became the new science that was pushed across the entire Soviet Union. I mean, think of it. If there's anywhere that knew how to make bread, it was the Soviet Union, right? It's the breadbasket of the world, Russia, Ukraine and Belarus and Poland. It's the breadbasket of Europe. And yet they came in centralized with new science and new ideas that were completely coordinated and centralized from the government. Here's what's key. Here's what's key to understand. The parallel that we can see directly today, not just the centralization of power, but also that if you spoke out against it, if you had a different opinion, if you had different science, if you had different perhaps information because your family wasn't farming or you understood the importance of using raw meat or raw milk and not putting extra chemicals in things, you would be arrested and you would be sent to the gulags. And this was done in Lysenkoism under the Soviet Union and under the Bolsheviks. It was done in the Great Leap Forward in Mao's China. And unfortunately, it led to some of the greatest health disasters that we've ever seen in human recorded history. And we lay that out here, that's exactly because of these types of programs that gave control over the food system to government. This is why communism's death toll is so high, because they gave the entire nation, in China, of course, the population of China, Russia, the population of Russia, all the way over the power to the government, to the central government, to political actors, to people who had special interests and special interests in what kind of food you eat. And it led to some absolutely horrible outcomes. And so when we're here in the United States, we think, okay, we're so much smarter than them. We're not socialists. We don't believe in that. But then you look at some of the policies that have been enacted by the FDA. You look at some of the policies by the USDA and other things that have come out there, and these other agencies and the additives that they're putting in, and all in the name, right? All in the name of the science, or all in the name of making a quick buck. Suddenly we realize that we are actually poisoning our own children, we're poisoning our own families. And it's something I talk to my wife about all the time, who, believe it or not, so my wife, who was born in the Soviet Union, is also one of the biggest Maha moms. Everything that we eat at home is it's either a whole food or it's a home cooked meal. We do not go out and eat. It's very rare. She loves to cook for us. We don't order takeout a lot, and it's something that she's always had for our kids. For example, our two little boys, I don't think they've hardly ever had cereal in their entire lives, because she's from a country that went down that road of centralized, collectivized government, where they took control of the food systems and realized how terrible it was. They were able to move past it. But at the same time, she came to America and said, my gosh, you guys are starting to make the same mistakes that we made back home, because she's seen it all before. And so, I don't usually talk about this, but she is absolutely in her dedication to that diet and to nutrition and to eating real food for our family has always been a huge inspiration for me. And I think it's because she's from a place, and certainly her parents' generation as well, was from a place where this absolutely became something that if you did not pay attention to, you would not survive. And that's one of the reasons that I think I'm ringing the alarm bell as much as I possibly can. Yes, it is the political violence that we've seen. The political violence, of course, we're coming up on the 1 year of Charlie's anniversary, but also it is the danger of turning all of our most precious resources, our food supply, our medical supply, over to the Soviet, communist, socialist systems, the same way it was done in the USSR. And I want to say thank you so much for having me on, Tony. It's great.
Yeah, thanks, Jack. Thanks for coming on. And it is just a fact that, questioning authority leads to better health, and, being able to do your own research. And if you're living in a country where you can't do your own research, then that's a communist country, basically. Of course. And that's what we got to under Fauci.
Oh, 100%. Dr. Fauci is the Lysenko of the United States. And anyone, you read this book and you'll say, my gosh, this all happened before, and we're just not told about it. We don't teach this in your elementary school. They don't teach it in colleges. They don't teach it in grade school. All of these things have happened before. And in fact, they had the same exact outcomes that we saw in the United States, that of course they're trying very hard to censor us even talking about the death toll, both not just COVID, but also from the vaccines, which absolutely, I've said this on War Room recently, I'll say it again, should be added to the victims of communism list. It should be.
Definitely. I mean, you can't have any kind of meaningful freedom if you don't have medical freedom.
No.
So, Jack, thanks. This is a fantastic book. I hope everybody watching this reads it. And thanks for coming on. Hope to have you again on soon.
God bless, Tony. Thanks so much, man.
You too. Next up, we have Chef Zakarian, and he's just a superstar chef. He's a best-selling author and one of the Food Network's most trusted faces. And he also brings his signature wellness-driven cuisine to Tampa General Hospital as its culinary director. And he's recently featured on The Real Food Show with our very own Secretary Kennedy, demonstrating that cooking with real whole food can lead to healthy, delicious, and affordable meals. So thanks for coming on, Jeff. Great to have you.
Tony, thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. What an honor to be here. I just actually did another show with RFK Jr. yesterday in Tampa, Florida. He's here in Florida. And we cooked eggs again. And as per usual, RFK Jr. inhaled everything we ate. That man is a protein machine. And now I know to have pickles and sauerkraut in every single show that we do together. But it's just a joy to see what's happening in this country. First, the food pyramid, and this is all happening quite rapidly. I started on my own to change the food at Tampa General Hospital when my father-in-law went in, and I was so completely disgusted by the food that they were serving. So 2.5, 3 years ago, I said to John Corsi, CEO, I said, let me change this food. I did. I call it Farm to Gurney. We took all sugar out, all seed oils, all pesticides, all hormones, all bleached flour. Now it's grass-fed protein only. Coconut oil, olive oil, and beef tallow is all we cook with. Everything is fresh. We make our own protein shakes, our own ice cream, our own milkshakes. We serve yummy, delicious food, and the patients love it. And RFK and Dr. Oz both came and sampled it, and they were stunned that this is the kind of food we can serve in our hospitals. I've been asked to expand the program through JACO, the NGO that has been over 100 years old that rates all the hospitals. So we'll be going with a chef's program starting in October to put great food into hospitals and make sure they follow the nutritional guidelines and the new pyramid. So it's just been a whirlwind. And let me tell you, this has all happened with Dr. Oz and RFK Jr.'s backing in literally 12 months. So it's quite extraordinary. I'm happy to help. And Tampa General is the first hospital to sign the Make Hospital Food Pledge to make hospital food great again. So that's the first pledge. We are ground zero here in Tampa to make sure that we are treating our hospital patients when they come in and get incredible service. They actually get food that is healthy, nourishing, bioavailable, nutrient dense, and they get the recipes to go home and actually hopefully can start a better life for themselves. So that's what I'm doing. I'm very excited to be involved with this. And it's just amazing. And let me tell you, I think if RFK Jr., his next adventure might be on Food Network because he's really good on this show. So I just want to thank everybody for listening. And I am very excited about what's happening in the future. And Tony's point, he mentioned changing the culture. The next thing we're trying to do is called the Chef Senate, where 100 chefs, just like senators, 2 in each state, will be in charge of K through 12 cooking for all of the public schools in this country. Each state will have 2 representatives. So Wisconsin will have their own representative. Texas will have their own. So multicultural cuisine, as well as multicultural vegetables and beef and all that, so that each state is representative of what they actually do well. We hope we can get this through, and we think it's a great idea to make sure that us, like in Japan, who cooks for every single public school student every day, where they have a 1% to 2% childhood obesity rate. Think about that. They cook every day, fresh food, no garbage, none of the crap that's in the schools that we have. It's imperative we do this. It's one generation away. It's a very binary problem. So I'm working very hard with Secretary Kennedy and Dr. Oz to do that. So we are making great progress, and I'm so very proud to be here and helping out. So thank you very much, everybody. And thank you, Tony.
Thanks, Jeff. And that's a really great point that, the Japanese are able to cook really healthy foods in schools, to have the kids do it. And here's the kicker. They do it for half the price. So the story that we've been told for a generation is that, we just need to get calories into kids, that we can't afford to feed kids healthy food. And that's just been a lie perpetrated by big food companies, that they just want to keep selling ultra processed food to schools. And, nobody should want that.
And I want to make one final point. I just want to say that there are companies that are really amazing, even big food companies. I'm working personally with Sodexo, and Molly Matthews, the CEO. She said, whatever you want to do, we will do. We will transform it. We've been waiting for something to happen like this because basically it's not their fault that people order from them stuff that's not healthy. It's just the way the system's been built. So she's all in on completely radically changing this. And they have an incredible food division that has Michelin star chefs and everything waiting to sort of come on board and help actually get bioavailable, great nutrition to the hospitals and to the children. So it's coming. And everybody, we all can blame the corporations, but a lot of corporations now stepping up and saying, thank God we're here. Let's do it. It won't take long. It just takes to change, as you said, to change the culture. And we're doing that.
Yeah, and it really doesn't matter what's happened in the past or who's done it. What matters is what we do now. And, what we can, get healthy food in schools and in hospitals all around the country. Such an incredible win. And, such a triumph for all of us. Bobby Kennedy and Dr. Oz getting that done and your help. It's just spectacular news. So thanks for everything.
My pleasure.
Next up, we have Russell Brand. But right before that, I want to read something that that Steve Bannon said. So we had some tech problems, so we couldn't hear him talking. And I didn't realize that he couldn't be heard. So I'm just going to say that, he said in the call that I had with him that we have the fight of our life on our hands in the midterms, and that he really wants to encourage every Maha voter to recognize that big pharma and big food will reverse every bit of progress we've made, and they will continue on the path that they've been on for the last 50 years of poisoning the American public for profit. And we need Bobby Kennedy to be able to continue the work that he's doing. And we think that he's making just incredible progress. And Steve Bannon has Maha people on his show every single week and wants to have more. So he's really on our side. He's really fighting hard. And he was sad that people couldn't hear him, and he's going to come on next week. But, he thinks we're making great gains. And I think the words that he used were victory or death, vintage Steve Bannon. Okay, next up we have Russell Brand. And Russell has been wrongly persecuted, prosecuted, deplatformed, demonized, censored, all these terrible things, just attacked from every direction. But he's always stood for his convictions, and we will always stand with him. He's the author of this incredible new book, How to Become a Christian in 7 Days, which is currently being censored. People do not want you to read it. The UK government, probably the US government, certainly Dr. Fauci doesn't want you to read it. I'm sure Joe Biden doesn't want you to read it. But while you still can, read this book and pray that we win in the midterms too. I don't like to mix those two things, but just had to throw that in here. Russell, welcome, and great to have you back on.
Thanks, Tony. It was really lovely actually to hear your previous guest describing some optimistic and positive changes in both food in the institutions of education and health. And it's surprising that that's considered a marvelous victory rather than sort of an obvious standard to aspire to, that hospitals should have healthy food in them, that schools should have healthy food in them. It's wonderful to stay alert to the obvious and evident markers of just how far a country can fall. And I suppose, thank you, Tony, for helping me to understand the significance of the midterms and ongoing political support and diligent action from the participants on this call and within this movement. Because I suppose, if I'm honest, sometimes due to the extreme nature of my personal circumstances, it's very easy to lean into a kind of desperate condemnation of all of these institutions, even when I know there are people with fine attributes working within them. It's easy for me to lapse into thinking you cannot trust anyone in the judiciary. You cannot trust anyone that's working for major corporations. You cannot trust anyone in politics. A friend of mine recently said, I'm somewhere when asked to describe his political position, he said, I'm somewhere between a decentralizing anti-federalist and hang them from the lampposts and start again. And it's very easy to sort of lapse into a kind of radicalism that doesn't include much compassion. And I don't actually think, Tony, that you should check yourself for saying pray for a good outcome in the midterms, because actually, if there is not a grounding in something sacred, something sublime, something more important than which tribe has power at which time, who is able to exploit these resources, which set of interests are going to prevail, who is going to be wearing the laurel and crown of victory, and who's going to be despondent and spilled on the floor of the Colosseum. If there's no more than that, then all we're really in is some kind of Hunger Games, Super Bowl of politics, unless there actually is a kind of a divine, sublime component, that life is sacred, that there is something irreligious and malfeasant about food being toxic and poisonous and addictive as a default, medicine being absolutely corrupted, figures that are held up as heroes and patrons being deplorable, deceptive liars, unless there is a principle upon which we can hang this. And once you're sort of saying principle, you're edging closer and closer to God. Once you're saying there's such a thing as truth, there's such a thing as justice, there's such a thing as love, we're not just arbitrarily resting only on chaos, drifting through apparent time and apparent space from nowhere to nowhere. Once you start to say we are made in a divine image, that we are here to represent and demonstrate love and kindness, that we're here to overcome the false self, the very self that might live an entire life pursuing nothing but profit and personal power, but there is a way out, there is a way through. If you denounce those kind of ideas, then really, what are we doing here? Really, what are we doing here if it's all for naught? If there's no reason that, why not then just sell the most profitable food in hospitals? Why not sell the most profitable food in schools? Why not denigrate the reputations of valiant individuals that are dedicating their life to, unless there's something that we can all hang our hat on? And what's the point, man? What's the point? Hey, so listen, I'll use the remainder of my time to say thank you to you for giving me that sort of shot of optimism, hearing that there's some sort of some gains that are being made in schools and hospitals where the vulnerable and the young are getting a better shot at better health, to endorse in whatever way I can, as an Englishman who's not allowed to vote, your attempts to rally midterm support. And to give props, I can see some brilliant people on this call. Got Dr. Eric Berg still to come, or maybe, if he's already been on and he's still watching, that makes him even more admirable. The great Mary Holland, Steve Kirsch, who's even if the radical's radical, I'd call him. And thank you for always including me in this, beloved friend. Thank you.
Yeah, Russell, Eric is coming on next. But let me start off by just saying that I'm sorry that I linked the midterms with prayer. What I was really thinking was basically that the people who are fighting the ability of these companies to poison our children in schools, but in all other places, these people are doing God's work. They really are trying to stop a level of corruption and of evil that is as bad as anything you can do in this world. Poisoning young children and knowing that you're going to have a health outcome that could ruin their whole lives, that could make it so difficult for them to get through a day. Nothing could be worse than that. So fighting these companies really is something meaningful and something that I do believe. I don't want to say it twice, but I'm going to say it. It is God's work. But it always is great to have you on, and I hope that you and Dr. Berg are going to get some time to talk soon. But he is coming on next, so if you want to say hello to him, do it now.
I muted my microphone in case the sound of me eating this whole food tangerine was appalling to your community. I would, Dr. Eric Berg, I would love to spend some time interviewing you learning from you, and if possible, even combing that magnificent head of hair that you're maintaining, if you're available and amenable.
Yeah. So, Dr. Berg, it's just great to have you on. I think let's just go straight into Dr. Berg.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to having you put your fingers through my hair. So I want to talk of this little book right here. It's called Change Your Environments, and there's a little fish in a fishbowl. And I want to talk a little bit about one little section out of this book that I think it's kind of interesting, because we're living in this illusion of choices, an illusion of freedom, an illusion of like we're in control. And I'm talking about mainly food, because if you walk into any grocery store in America, you'll see about 30,000 food products on the shelf. And you're just going to be like, wow, there's so much variety. This is so great. We have all these choices. 30,000 on the surface, it's like amazing. But if you actually look behind the hood, you're going to find that the majority of the ingredients for 30,000 items come down to only 3 ingredients, 3 crops: corn, soy, and wheat. That's it. And they're the big subsidized crops. So basically, the taxpayers pay for them. And then you got to buy them again. So anyway, it's like corn breaks down into high fructose corn syrup, corn oil, corn starch, maltodextrin, modified food starch, dextrose, gargum, all sorts of things. It's in your soda, it's in your chips, it's all over the place. So soy, for example, emulsifiers, sauces, seed oils, you name it. And then, of course, refined wheat. That has no business being in any of our diet, because it's like all refined. It's this powder. It's not very healthy at all. When they say whole healthy grains, well, no one eats whole healthy grains. They're completely ground down to the shelf for months before you eat them. So we don't really have 30,000 choices. We have a lot of hidden, or an illusion of choices in different cardboard boxes that look very colorful. So it's not variety. And of course, most people blame themselves. They're like, well, I just don't have enough willpower. And that's what this book is about. It's not about your willpower. It's about your environment. We're actually stuck in an environment that is engineered for addiction on many different levels. So, I mean, for thousands of years, our bodies have operated in a completely different environment where getting food required effort. We had to hunt, we had to gather, we had to farm. And your body had to spend energy acquiring that energy. Today, we eliminated all those barriers. You can actually sit on the couch, tap your screen, and junk food will show up at your door within about 20 minutes. So every gas station, every checkout lane, it's right in front of your face. So our environment really is rigged against you. And there's this thing called a bliss point. And sometimes people think it's just the combination of sugar, fat, and salt, and it just tastes so good. But there's more to this bliss point than you might think. It's actually a precise mathematical combination of sugar, fat, and salt, where your brain cannot say no. It just can't. There's no satisfaction. Like you can just keep eating, and it turns off that signal. So it lights up your brain's reward centers on dopamine completely. So you just keep eating, and you keep eating. You can't eat one. In nature, you never find concentrated fat and sugar together. Okay, but in junk food, you do. That's what they have. So our entire environment is rigged against you. And also, the main thing that they strip out of this junk food is protein. Protein is what really satisfies people, and the trace minerals as well. So now the cells stay starved, no matter how many calories you give them, and you keep wanting it. Even my horse. I have several horses. In the spring, they get really fat because they're eating all this grass that's super high in carbohydrate. But they're trying to find legumes and other plants that are higher in protein, and they'll keep eating until they find enough protein, until they're satisfied. So I have to substitute protein to actually get them to stop eating, or else they'll get too fat. But at a grocery store, we have 30,000 products, but really only three main ingredients. So it's really not about your willpower. It's about your environment. And so that's what this book is about. It's like, if you change your environment one time and set it up to win, only the healthy choice will be the default. So I want to just mention that this book is out, and if you wanted more data on that, you can check it out. Thanks, Tony.
Thanks, Eric. And it's so important just to think that they've been trying to addict us to these foods and to this kind of way of life, so that we're not weak. It's not our fault. We've been manipulated, and it's a game. And it's a game that we've been rigged to lose. And so, like you said, your brain can't fight it. It's just not a fair fight. And the only science we can trust is the science that they did, the research they did, the studies that they did to addict you to things that will make your life worse. And so the beauty of the work that you do, and the beauty of this book, is that it can help turn the tide, is that these are practical steps that you're giving us, practical steps, both in your videos and in this book, that can make it more of a fair fight, so that we have tools and we have knowledge that they've tried to prevent us from getting, so that we can lead healthier and happier lives. So this is a book people really ought to buy. And thank you for the work that you've done. Great to have you on, Eric.
Thank you very much.
Next up, we have Dr. Bob Sears, and he's a pediatrician, the author of the vaccine book and 7 other books. And he's a founding member of Physicians for Informed Consent. So important. People have to make choices for themselves. They're going to make better choices than the government or the companies or any of the people who are trying to force us. So his mission is to ensure that all families worldwide receive complete, objective, and undoctored, informed consent before they choose vaccination. And he wants people everywhere to retain the freedom to make health decisions for themselves and for their children. So such important work. Thank you for coming on, Dr. Bob Sears.
Yeah, thank you, Tony. I appreciate you guys having me on. It's always fun to join the MAHA team. Hopefully you guys can hear me okay. I'm in the middle of a busy day, rushing around seeing patients today. So happy to jump on to talk about measles. I know people are concerned about measles, and because there's been a clear comeback over the last couple of years. And I like to just maybe make sure everyone understands why there's been a comeback and what you can do about it, and why you can be educated about it, but you don't have to live in fear of measles. So first of all, why the comeback? The main reason why is that the vaccine we use might protect kids, some kids from catching measles while they're young, but it wears off by the time you're a teenager. And most adults are walking around without measles immunity. So we can actually never really get rid of measles from our country, because it's trying to regain a foothold, and we might be seeing trust the measles MMR vaccine as much anymore. So that might be why some of these communities are having measles outbreaks. But the truth is, it's not spreading because people are not vaccinating. It's because we can't eliminate this infection from our society. We just don't have a vaccine that gives you lifelong immunity, like catching the disease that gives you lifelong immunity. So do you need to fear measles? My feeling is no. If you look at the fatality rate in healthy kids who are well nourished and who get enough vitamin A in their diet, the fatality rate of measles is about 1 for every 93,000 children. That's a very low fatality rate. Now, when you look at all children in our country, well nourished, undernourished, the fatality rate might be about 1 in 10,000. That's a number we've known about for a very long time. Why does this say the fatality rate is 1 in 500 or 1 in 1,000. That's what the old CDC used to say to scare people. That's only hospitalized kids. Kids who show up in the ER very sick from measles, or if you're hospitalized, the fatality rate could be about 1 in 1,000 of those cases. But for everybody, the good news is if you have a healthy child and you're getting vitamin A in your diet, the fatality rate is about 1 in 93,000. So that's what I tell people to do. Eat vitamin A foods, take daily cod liver oil, keep your kids well nourished, and you will weather measles just fine. I think people don't trust the vaccine anymore, Tony. The MMR vaccine, which protects against measles, it's one of the vaccines with the most possible side effects and some of the most severe side effects. People just don't trust it anymore. So parents are now raising their kids without that vaccine. And you know what? Measles might be here to stay. It might become more a part of our society. We can be on the lookout for it, stay home if you have a fever and a cough and red eyes. And then if you get the rash, stay home. Maybe you don't want to spread it to everyone in your school. Now we're back to COVID days, right? But recognize it, stay home if you catch it, but don't fear it, and be well nourished so you're ready for it. And most importantly, if you catch measles, take high dose vitamin A. The CDC has always been very clear that high dose vitamin A reduces the risk of your measles infection. It reduces complications. The measles page on my website tells you all of this information, tells you how much vitamin A to take daily as a prevention, how to high dose vitamin A if you catch measles, what that protocol is. So, you know what? Education is important, knowledge, not fear. And, we'll get through this. And if we have to accept measles as a sort of a regular part of a society now, moving forward, then we have to be ready for it.
Yeah, Bob, those are great points. I mean, with most of these things in the last, 30, 40 years, we've always been fed just one side of the story. So we're trying to prevent a single measles death. So does that mean we should be willing to have autism rates that go from 1 in 10,000 to 1 in 30 or, something like that? Or should we be fighting certain things while ignoring other things, while watching every child in the country have, some kind of allergy now versus 20, 30 years ago, where you could have a whole school where there was virtually no children who had an allergy to anything, or practically no obesity, no childhood cancers. So all of these kinds of things, they're a part of the story, right?
Exactly. And I think the old CDC focused way too heavily on disease prevention. If we can prevent an infection, no matter what the cost to everyone in society, let's prevent it. Whereas I think wise people today, they look more at long-term health, healthy living, healthy outcomes. And if we have to catch some infections along the way, yet live a healthier, longer, happier life while we're doing that, that's what I think is an important or more important aspect of health. And that's what I would love the CDC to focus on, is long-term well-being, not infection prevention.
Right. Great points. Great to have you on. Hope to have you back soon.
Thanks, Tony. Thanks.
Thank you. Next up, we have Steve Kirsch. And Steve is a former big tech professional, and he became a full-time journalist writing all about vaccines shortly after he received the COVID vaccine, and then started hearing stories about bad health outcomes from the vaccine. And he's written over 1,700 articles about vaccines on his Substack. 1,700, and just a crazy number. That is KirschSubstack.com, KIRSCH Substack.com. And Google used to list him at the, as the top hit when you typed in misinformation super spreader, because he's calling for data transparency. That's something, that he should be really proud of, but that I guess the government and big tech companies really fear. So recently, he's been focused on exposing what arguably is the greatest gaslighting campaign in human history, that vaccines don't trigger autism and that the science on that is totally and absolutely settled. So, Steve, thanks for the work you do and welcome. Steve, we can't hear you yet.
Forgot to hit the unmute. Can you hear me now?
Welcome. Yes.
All right. Awesome. Okay. I'm currently involved in a research study with the help of Children's Health Defense, and I think Mary will be on later. I can see her in the on the backstage here, which is focused on what I call sudden onset autism cases, where the kids are developing and progressing normally, and then boom, the bottom drops out. They just, like a light switch, they have this onset date where the parents notice this dramatic and lasting change had occurred. And so the neat thing about this is it's the parents' perception of that date, because it's very visible. The parents always know when it happened. It's like a light switch. And so I focused a survey of parents on asking for information about sudden onset autism. And I wanted to share the results with you today because they indicate that autism onset is man-made. It's not naturally occurring. And there's just no other way to interpret the data. And the method that we used was very simple. It was just a parent survey, publicly distributed. We had a diverse group of individuals and organizations that asked open-ended, that distributed it. And the survey just asked open-ended and then specific questions and asked parents to identify both their certainty and their ability to produce contemporaneous documentation. And we found three things that are really interesting that nobody has ever talked about before. So the first thing is that the age of autism onset noted by parents peaks at 18 months. And people knew that, but what they don't know is that it drops by a factor of 30 at month 19. It basically goes off a cliff in 1 month. That is not natural. That aligns precisely with a man-made CDC schedule, which the last visit are 18 months. So that should be a big clue that this is not genetic and this is not random. The second thing is we found that 30% of onsets happened within 1 day of vaccination and 40% happened within 2 days of vaccination. So that is not a coincidence. The third thing we found is that the day of the week mattered. Sunday was 50% lower than Saturday. This aligns with the fact that kids are vaccinated Monday through Friday and kids don't get vaccinated on weekends. So we have three different ways to look at this problem, and all three point in the same direction. This is a man-made crisis where probably 90% of the autism is simply caused by vaccines. So the McDowell triplets are a stunning example of this effect. It's the only time in human history where triplets became autistic within hours of each other. And it just started 2 hours, and it started 2 hours after vaccination. So what we have is that genes load the gun, vaccines kill the trigger. But if you don't pull the trigger, nobody dies. And, that's the whole story right there. And so we need people. I'm going to be speaking at the IACC meeting tomorrow. I have a 3-minute slot to deliver this message. And my message to them is simple. Do the survey. It's not a biased survey. It just says, what do you recall? What do you remember? What do you think might be the cause? It just asks parents questions about what has happened. And what we will find is we will find an enormous signal. We will find the greatest gaslighting campaign in human history. And it's not just the biggest, but it's also the most dangerous. And it has caused irreparable harm to millions and millions of kids worldwide. And so it's time to put a stop to this. And I hope to do that at the IACC meeting on tomorrow. That is pretty much it.
Thanks, Steve. Yeah, you're clearly doing great work, and you're a big part of the reason that the truth is coming out. And that truth is dangerous. And it's dangerous to big pharmaceutical profits. It's dangerous to a government that wants to lie to us and deceive us. It is true that so many of the things that we thought the government was going to protect us from are actually created by the government or created by these big pharma companies or big food companies. And so you're showing that autism is man-made. We know now that COVID is man-made. Bobby Kennedy says, and I believe that he's right, that Lyme disease is man-made. So many of these things, from cancer to obesity, all of them, chronic disease is not only preventable, but it's man-made. We've created this problem. And that's the only way, and I'm going to say it time after time, that we can spend 3 times the money that any other country on the planet spends on healthcare and somehow get the worst health outcomes of any country. That's hard
totally.
to do. That's almost impossible to do. So thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Tony.
Next up, we have Mary Holland. And Mary is the CEO of the almost unimaginably incredible and wonderful Children's Health Defense. And she's a prolific author, a former professor at NYU School of Law. And she's been fighting to protect children and children's health and involved in just hundreds and hundreds of lawsuits all around the country, all around the world for the last 2 decades. Welcome, Mary. Great to have you on again.
Tony, thanks so much for having me. And Steve, I'm so grateful for the work that you're doing. And I'm very excited that I'm going to be at that Interagency Autism Coordinating Committee tomorrow. And I pray that it will be very different from any of the ones that I used to go to years ago. But I want to talk a little bit about measles, and I want to talk about our Children's Health Defense upcoming conference in DC. So on measles, you may know that allegedly, as of yesterday, the governor of Pennsylvania talked about 2 quote unquote measles associated deaths. You have to wonder, what does that mean? But what's fascinating that's come out today is that the Lancaster County coroner is saying there are 0 measles deaths. So you have to wonder what this is really all about. There certainly seems to be a political cast to this. Governor Shapiro is talking about Bobby Kennedy and how he's caused problems. Kennedy is shooting back on social media. We believe, having really covered the measles outbreak in West Texas a year ago, that if these were children, they would likely be telling us that they were children. So it seems more likely that these are elderly people or older people, and no genotype information has been given. So we're covering this story. We're following it closely. It, by all appearances, has a lot to do with fear mongering and attempts by powers that be to go after Kennedy for the work he's doing. That said, I'm super excited about our upcoming conference Thursday, September 17 in Washington, D.C., with some of the leading lights in Congress, in media, in activism around health freedom. Tony, I'm excited that you're going to be giving a lunch keynote that day, but we're going to have Senator Rand Paul. We're going to have Senator Ron Johnson. We're going to have Representative Paul Gosar, Representative Lance Gooden, and they're going to be talking about the investigations they're doing. They're going to be talking about the criminal contempt referral for Tony Fauci. They'll be talking about the bill related to gain of function. They'll be talking about the bill to end the vaccine carve-out. They'll be talking about the investigations that the Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations is doing under Ron Johnson. It's really, I hope, Tony, you'll be talking about what MAHA's doing. Also, Mark Gorton, the head of MAHA Institute, will be speaking, and we will be talking about this very important issue of the media. We are in this sort of respite from the terrible censorship that we were suffering under COVID, but we know that the levers are still possible to pick up. And so we have journalists like Jan Jekielek from Epoch Times, Sayer Ji, who writes on Substack, our own Catherine Paul from Defender, Polly Tommy, Lara Logan, and we will be talking about the post-COVID media environment. And there will be other people that are still being added. Lance Gooden is going to be talking about the issues with telecom. 6 years ago, then as an attorney at Children's Health Defense, Bobby Kennedy won a judgment against the Federal Communications Commission that they needed to put out health regulations. And 6 years later, they've done nothing. So the court has now issued a mandamus that they have to come back in 30 days and say what they're doing. But the telecom industry is really trying to push for greater federal preemption. We'll have a speaker in Congress speaking about that. So you can sign up now. There's a hotel block that's going to disappear on Friday at the Grand Hyatt in DC. It'll be more expensive after Friday. If you're planning to come, and I hope you will, sign up now. Thanks so much, Tony. Sorry?
Thanks, Mary. Great to have you on. No, just great to have you back on. And yeah, definitely come to that conference if you can. Mary, how did they find that conference? Where should they go?
Oh, thank you, Tony. Yeah, chdconference.org, chdconference.org. All of the details are there. You can register. You can get the hotel special rate. It's going to be a great conference. It really is. It's one day, and there's a dinner at night where we're going to give an award, our Defender Award, to Senator Ron Johnson, who's really been leading the charge on behalf of people who've been injured vaccines in Congress. And we want to really pay tribute to the really important work that he's been doing.
Yeah, clearly nobody in the Senate has done a better job than Ron Johnson and then Rand Paul. Just the two of them have been just an incredible pair. So
and
thank you,
together
Mary.
with Secretary Kennedy, Secretary Kennedy working with them, that's how we got these Fauci diaries. That's how we're getting these telephone records. And we can see what a difference it makes, right? When we have people who really are in the fight, who really care, it makes all the difference in the world.
And, that's a great point that Russell Brand made, is that, we can disparage what our government's done and what all these big corporations have done to us over all this time. But it is true that there are some incredible people working day and night in government now, and that, Secretary Kennedy, Rand Paul, and Ron Johnson are three of those people. So thanks, Mary. Next up, we have Anthony Constantino, and he's a political outsider who built a sticker mule, a global company headquartered in upstate New York with over 1,000 employees. And he's running for Congress in upstate New York. And he set the record for the most votes in the New York 21 primary after, just fighting off fierce establishment opposition, just incredibly fierce. And we know what that looks like, that the party system is just so oppressive. And so he's somebody who really fought back. And he also took up professional boxing at age 40 somehow and scored 4 consecutive knockouts. So he's a real fighter in all ways. And 2 of his knockouts were as a professional and 2 as an amateur, mainly doing this to test himself in a whole new area while pursuing his passion for fitness. So welcome, Anthony. Great to have you on.
Happy to be here and excited to represent the MAHA agenda in Congress. The odds say I'm expected to win. I just won the primary in decisive fashion. So I don't know if it's fair to say I'm an outsider anymore. I had to fight the establishment in New York State, tragically the Republican establishment, but I had a great ally. I had the best ally you could ask for, President Trump. He endorsed me in a big way, and we set a record together, and I got endorsed by Rudy Giuliani too, another great person. So I want to say thank you to them, but I really love the MAHA movement. I'm a lifelong fitness addict. I think fitness is the easiest way to make life a little better for yourself. And I like helping people get fit. In fact, not only did I become a professional boxer, but I had experience working in fitness myself. Firstly, my park in my hometown, in the town where my business is, was totally abandoned. There's a beautiful park there when I was a kid. And as I built my company, some of my employees came to visit from out of town. And there was an abandoned park. They said, what is this? A big pile of grass. I said, it used to be a park. And they said, why don't we turn it into a park again? And so I worked with the Republican mayor to turn it back into a park. There used to be a fitness trail in the park. We put the fitness trail back in. We put in attractions for the kids just to get people out, get fresh air and be healthy. And next thing I know, a Democrat takes office. And the first thing he does week 1 is he holds a press conference saying that he built the park, that I didn't do it, that he did it. He took all credit for doing the park. I said, this is a little strange. And then I go through it again during the pandemic. We had a community gym where all my employees went. I paid them a decent amount of money to go to the community gym. And because of the pandemic, we get noticed the gym's closing down. So I stepped in. I tried to talk the community gym into staying open. They refused. Didn't matter how much money I wanted to give them. They said the only way to stay open is if I buy the gym, but I had to relocate it. So I actually moved the gym into an abandoned building, spent over $1 million of my own money to renovate the building. I built a world-class gym called Mule Fitness. And can you believe this? I made it free for law enforcement. And when I got involved in politics and people started learning my political beliefs, the Democrats again banned law enforcement from using my gym for free. So the Democrats say they're about health and fitness. I don't think they say they like the police. They say they don't like the police, but they don't care about the health of our police officers. I do. That's why I let them have free memberships, and that was taken away from them, which is totally crazy. But I do have to say one thing. I built the gym, and I said I'd like to do everything to the best of my ability, whether it's building a company. I built a company with over 1,000 people. I'm running for Congress. I had the most votes in NY21 history. I want to be a great congressperson. I want to be one of our best Congress people. I'm going to be following the footsteps of Elise Stefanik, one of our greatest Congress people. So I better do a good job, or people are going to be very frustrated because they're used to her doing a very good job. But I like doing everything to the best of my ability. I like doing everything well. And so when I built the gym, I said, I want to build a world-class gym for the best athletes. And recently we had Henry Cejudo come train with me. We became friends through politics. He's a fan of the Maha movement as well. And he came immediately following a loss to Marab, the Machine, in Georgia. He lost 11-8. He came straight to my house. We were going to spend time exercising and campaigning together, and they offered him a rematch. So he did his whole campaign with me. He came back and he won in decisive fashion. And he got a 36-second pin, which is the record for fastest pin in RAF history. They've had 14 events so far. And Henry now has the record after training in my facility for 6 weeks and campaigning with me all over NY21. So I'm excited to get into Congress. I want to represent the Maha movement. I want to make people healthier. I'm in a farming district. And one of the things that drives me nuts in America is all this frozen food. I want to make us eat farm fresh food again. You know, we used to eat farm fresh food. That's the way it was. Even when I was a kid, I used to go with my dad and we would go to the farms and get food, get our vegetables and get our meats from the farm. And I still do that. But by and large in America, you go out to a restaurant, you're eating frozen food. You don't know how long it's been frozen for. And we have all these regulations that are destroying the restaurant industry. All we have is franchises now. And we don't have fresh food anymore. It's really bad for our restaurants. It's bad for our farmers, and it's bad for our health. And I want to do everything. So I want to do everything I can to make America healthy again. You guys are already got the ball rolling doing that. RFK coined the term, and I'm excited to do what I can to support the movement.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for coming on. It's just crazy that they would prevent you from, helping policemen get healthier and stronger. Like, who would have that position? I mean, who would want to prevent that? Why would anybody not want to have healthier policemen in this country, in any state, in any city? I mean, it's just crazy. But, you were an outsider, and we're happy that you fought your way to a position where now you're going to be a real insider, and hopefully somebody who's fighting for us, fighting for Maha, fighting for our children. So thank you so much for the battles you've been fighting, and we hope that you soon become or get into a position where you can really be fighting battles for Maha and for families, all across the state.
Hey, I just say this really quickly. Maha is for everybody, and that's what I like about the movement. It's for everybody, Democrat and Republican alike. And my gym was for everybody. That's why I invited law enforcement to use it for free. And I'm sure there's a lot of Democrats that come to my gym, and I'm happy they use it. And they see me and they smile and they shake my hand. They say, thanks for building a great gym. So I'm here to help everybody. RFK is here to help everybody. I'm a strong Trump supporter, but I think President Trump's here to help everybody too. That's why I support him. And that's why I support the Maha movement. It's a great movement. So let me know what I can do to be helpful, and look forward to serving.
Thank you. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Okay, so Anthony Constantino has made a blunt promise to farmers: no more interference on American farmland. And he wants to prioritize livestock and crops on New York's farmland, and not big corporate interest schemes that strip farmers of their livelihood and of their heritage. So we're proud to endorse Anthony Constantino for Congress in New York's 21st District, because family farms are the background of this country. And they're the background, the backbone of our food and the key to having a healthier population. So he's going to fight to make sure that farmers get the kind of fair treatment that they deserve, and that is going to help make this country healthier. So we're proud to do this endorsement, and we're really looking to have candidates like him get into positions of power. So thank you so much for spending this hour with us yet again. The Maha Media Hub really wants to help with the midterms, and we want all of you to help with the midterms, not for some kind of opaque political reasons, but because we want Bobby to have the opportunity to complete the job, and we want Dr. Oz to be able to complete his work, and Jay Bhattacharya, the incredible team that is at HHS now, and Lee Zeldin at the EPA, and so many other people in this administration who are doing work that has just not been done before. And no, they're not perfect, and they're not getting everything done, and it's not as fast as any of us would ever want. But the work that's being done is revolutionary, and it is earth-shattering, and it is turning back 50 years of corruption. And if we have 2 more years, I think the work they can get done is going to be just an existential victory. So I think that that's what you should think about when you think about the midterms, not about the politics of it, but about the health of our children, and about what's going to happen if we lose the Senate and we lose the House, or lose either one of them, that the outcome there is congressional hearings that, for one reason or another, will result in Americans being less healthy. There's no doubt about that. So thank you so much for joining us yet again, and look forward to seeing all of you next week at 4 p.m. on Wednesday for another Maha Media Hub. Hope you have a great week.
America's children are sick, and moms have been betrayed. The time for empty promises, long past. Now is a time for action. Maha is the most powerful force of collective action in generations. The grassroots power of moms and activists has created an army of health warriors with more reach than all mainstream media combined. Together, we can end the chronic disease epidemic. Maha's influence is reaching millions. It's reaching Congress. And that energy, these chain reactions, are working.
How about Operation Stork Speed?
Dozens of food companies removing toxic ingredients.
I plan to lead by example.
Maha is now.
We're talking about how to change the culture.
The American people want America healthy again.
It is a renaissance moment in health in America.
For health, freedom, and the truth. Join us at Maha Action.